From schools trying to quote-unquote socially transition students behind the parents' back, to Hamas and Iran blowing up United States embassies overseas, the world is going crazier and crazier behind our back, and there's nothing much that we can do other than reject this perverse ideology and reject the leftist talking points that are coming out of the war in the Middle East, and reject the talking points that are coming out of Ukraine versus Russia. Without further ado, let's begin.
Facts over tracks, isn't that spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas, think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past.
OMG has obtained bombshell emails from school counselors at Kingsway Regional School District.
We do have confidentiality. That means that everything that we talk about stays between us.
In an email dated August 2nd that we obtained through public records requests, Fallon Corcoran emails Mike Schiff where she says, quote, I had one of my students reach out to me about their preferred name for next year. Do we know how we can input their name into Genesis without it being visible by families? Kingsway Regional School District has developed a tier system to classify students and the associated student assistant plans. Tier 1 being defined as no parent guardian involvement.
Okay, so here they have three different tiers. They have tier 1, no parent involvement at all, no staff or facility involvement. Tier 2 is that the staff in the facility are fully involved, but there is no parent or guardian involved yet. And then tier 3 are all parties are aware and involved, including parent/guardian. Okay, so why do they even care? Why do they want to make sure that the kid has something that the parent does not want that kid to have, or does not know that kid even has that very thing? So if they don't tell the parents, how do they know if the parents are quote unquote accepting, if they're not accepting? Why is there even a tier system that the parents do not know? It's not their kid. So any of these tiers, on tier number 1, the parent should be notified. Tier number 2, the parents should be notified. And tier number 3, the parents should be notified. Every single tier, there should be one tier. If you tell us about anything, your parents will know about it, because your parents need to know about stuff.
Being defined as no parent guardian involvement, no staff faculty involvement. Tier 2 being defined as staff faculty aware and involved, no parent guardian involvement yet. The attempts made by these administrators to conceal their activities from the public, well, guess what? All of that is now being laid bare for the parents to see. These emails show school counselors, teachers, and staff socially transitioning middle school and high school children without their parents' knowledge or consent. The emails show that Kingsway Regional School District has developed a tier system to classify students and the associated student assistant plans. Tier 1 being defined as no parent guardian involvement, no staff faculty involvement. Tier 2 being defined as staff faculty aware and involved, no parent guardian involvement yet. When they classify a student as one of these tiers, they begin referring to the particular child with their preferred name, preferred gender pronouns, even designated bathroom use associated with their gender identity. Equally as shocking are the lengths that these counselors, teachers, and staff go to ensure that parents don't find out. In an email between Teresa Coopsey and Michelle Maurer, the administrators at the school, that we obtained through a public records request after we got audio from a source within the school, we'll get to that in a minute, these administrators prepare for an in-person meeting with a Tier 2 student and their parents by letting the involved staff know, quote, since parents will be present, just to be clear, we are using the legal name of the student and he/she pronouns. This is apparently to make sure that nobody inadvertently tips off the mom and dad to the fact that they're using a different name and different gender pronouns behind their back while the child is at school.
Wait, he/she pronouns, what does that even mean? He/she pronouns. So what does that even mean? He/she pronouns. These things just don't even make any sense to me. How can you be both? Like, you choose one or the other. You can't be they, them. Like, it's just, that doesn't even make any sense to me. They, them is different than she, he, she. Is it? I don't even know. I don't even care. First of all, this makes no sense. Why is the school trying to cover up for the student? Number one. Number two, why does the school care so much in the aspect of you in your life? Like, just leave the kids alone. That's all we want. Leave the kids alone. You teach English, science, social studies, and math. Us, the parents, will teach them everything else. Okay? You do not need to teach our kids something about anything else other than English, social studies, math, and English. Okay? Those are the 4 subjects you're going to be teaching the kids. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay? Okay. You should know what's exactly happening at school with your kids. That's the bare minimum. It's your children. It's your kids. You should know what's going on with them. But with that being said, we do have a couple different articles to talk about. So without further ado, let's dig into the headlines of the week. Okay, so moving right in, we have a Daily Wire article. We have Israel hits 150 Hamas tunnel sites in airstrikes using fire that has never been seen before. Israel unleashed fury on northern Gaza Friday night after repeatedly urging civilians to evacuate the area for at least 2 weeks as it seeks to permanently eradicate Hamas, the Palestinian terrorist group that is responsible for murdering 1,400 Israelis, wounding 5,200 plus more, and kidnapping 200 plus people. The IDF said that it struck 150 underground sites in Hamas's vast underground terror tunnels that allow the terrorists to meet, organize, and move undetected throughout Gaza. The terrorists also store weapons, ammunition, and other military supplies in the tunnels. The terrorists use hardwired landlines, which allowed them to communicate without being intercepted by Israeli intelligence as they plotted the October 7th attacks. During the attack, terrorists of the terrorist organization Hamas were eliminated in combat tunnels, underground combat spaces, and other underground terrorist infrastructures were destroyed, the IDF said in a statement. The IDF also said numerous high-value targets were killed during the strikes including the terrorist who was responsible for overseeing the Hamas's aerial assets. Overnight, IDF fighter jets struck Assam Abu Rakub, the head of Hamas aerial array. The IDF said in a statement, Abu Arabia was responsible for Hamas's UAVs, drones, paragliders, aerial detection, and defense. He took part in planning the October 7th massacre and commanded the terrorists who infiltrated Israel on paragliders and was responsible for the drone attacks on the IDF posts. The IDF commander in charge of the operation said, "We are using fire that has never been seen before in the Gaza Strip, from the air, from the ground, or from underground. The IDF will eliminate every senior and junior terrorist in every terrorist infrastructure of Hamas," the commander continued. Lieutenant Colonel Gilad Kanian added, "In the attack flight tonight, about 100 fighter jets dropped hundreds of weapons and destroyed hundreds of targets of the Hamas terrorist organization. The Air Force is prepared for the continued development of the campaign and works together with all of the bodies in the IDF when the goal is clear: to destroy everything touched by the hand of Hamas." Israel also reportedly destroyed a site belonging to Hezbollah, an Iranian-backed terrorist group that is based in Lebanon. In response to the rockets it fired into Israel. Yes, exactly. So Israel is finally defending itself, and that's a good thing. People are sitting here saying, no, this is genocide, this is genocide. This is not genocide. We're not wiping out the whole entire population of Hamas. We're not wiping out the whole entire Palestinian regime. We're not wiping out the whole entire regime of Iran or Iraq. We're not doing that. What Israel is doing is having justice for the people, the hundreds of thousands of people that were killed on October 7th. This is justice, people. This is exactly what Hamas deserves. When you go into somebody's village and rape and murder a bunch of people that lives within that village, the country that is responsible for those people will take care of those people. That's what a good country does. On 9/11, the United States blew up 2 different countries in retaliation for thousands of people being killed on 9/11. What did you expect that the United States was going to do? The most powerful country in the world. What did you think that we were going to do? Just sit back and sit on our hands? No. We were not going to sit on our hands. We're going to have repercussions for you, for your stupid actions and your stupid thoughts about you trying to get away with murder of thousands of people. But that's exactly what the other people around the world want. Iran wants the war with the United States. Hamas wants the war with Israel. That's exactly what they were doing this in the very first place for, and that's the war that they will get. If they continue to blow up United States military bases, then they will have the heavy hands of the United States government in the military complex at their front door, and they will not be surviving after that. The military of the United States may look weak on TikTok when we have John Kirby and we have Millie Brown or whatever the heck we have General Milley over here with all the LGBTQ stars on his chest. Those aren't the real people that are fighting in these wars. The real people that are fighting in these wars are ruthless people. They are powerful people, and they're all muscle. These people in charge are not speaking for the United States government. They're speaking for their own political objectives. They're not speaking for the military of the United States of America. The United States military is the most powerful military in the world, and it will always be the case. No other country can form an alliance that is strong enough to beat the United States military complex and its allies. It cannot. There's no possible way that it can ever happen. Yes, it will be deadly. That war, if everybody in the world keeps on fighting and a world war breaks out, which is not in the best interest of anybody except for Joe Biden, I guess, because he says war is a good thing, and Nikki Haley, I guess, because she says that war is a good thing also. But the thing is that no, war is not a good thing because thousands of people die. All of us have to go into war to help fight for the United States, and so many people have to perish because of that. So no, we do not want to get into a world war. That's exactly why we have the best interest of Israel, and we have to make sure that this stays within Israel and Hamas. We need to make sure that Iran does not get involved, which they already did. We need to make sure that all of those allies are not getting involved, which Russia's getting involved, because the thing is that these countries do not just stick with one country. These countries don't just say, okay, this is my country, that's it. No, they expand. They say, listen, I'm going to ally with you. I'm going to ally with Russia. I'm going to ally with this and that and China and boom, 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 boom. And then they have an alliance on their own. All the terrorist regimes have an alliance on their own. But then the West also has an alliance of its own too, which other countries cannot beat. So if they want to play a quick hand trick over here and try to see if they can beat the United States, they can't. Newsflash, they can't. Moving into the next article, we actually have a United States news article. So we have White House says Iran actively facilitating some attacks on the United States military bases. This is Washington, Reuters. The White House on Monday said Iran was in some cases actively facilitating rocket and drone strikes attacks by Iranian-backed proxy groups on the United States military bases in Iraq and Syria. And President Biden has directed the Department of Defense to brace for more to respond appropriately. The White House spokesperson John Kirby said that there has been an uptick in such attacks over the last week and especially over the last few days, but the United States will not allow these threats to its interests in the region to go unchallenged. He said that the United States believes that these groups were supported by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard, IRGC, in the Iranian government, which was also continuing to support the Hamas and Hezbollah militant group. We know that Iran is closely monitoring these events and in some cases actively facilitating these attacks and spurring on others who may want to exploit in conflict of their own, for their own or for that of Iran, he said. There's been an increase in attacks on the United States forces since the conflict of Israel intensified on October 7th when militants from the Palestinian group Hamas attacked southern Israel. We're deeply concerned about the potential for any significant escalation of these attacks in the days ahead, Kirby said. Biden has sent naval power over to the Middle East in the past 2 weeks, including 2 aircraft carriers, other warships, and about 2,000 Marines. So yeah, we have boots on the ground in Israel because it's needed. We need to contain this war in Israel. We know Iran's goal is to maintain some level of deniability here, but we're not going to allow them to do that, Kirby said. We also are not going to allow any threat to our interests in the region to go unchallenged. So I completely agree. If we have have Israel collapse, then, I mean, that would be just a terrible thing, but it's not going to happen. Israel has a very, 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 very big military budget, and they can afford their own bills. But the United States should also step in and say, no, we're allies with them. You mess with them, you mess with us. Even though they're not part of NATO, which I think that they should be part of NATO, but I guess there's some reasons why they're not. I mean, I don't agree with them, but I guess there is some reasons why they're not part of NATO. With that being said, we're going to be digging into the media's takes.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Okay, moving into the dozen takes, we actually have a CNN article. We have Biden administration highlights efforts to address anti-Semitism on college campuses. The Biden administration is announcing new actions on Monday aimed at combating a dangerous of anti-Semitic incidents on college campuses across the country in the wake of the Hamas terror attacks on Israel. The White House highlighted a series of steps taken by the Democratic of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, and the Department of Defense of the Department of Education, including engagement with campus law enforcement officials, which comes amid rising tension on college campuses. Over the weekend, a series of anti-Semitic threats were made against Cornell University's Jewish community on online posts. CNN has reported that at many universities, students are engaging in protests as some administrators grapple with how to acknowledge students' wide-ranging concerns while also fielding backlash from influential donors demanding that colleges take a clearer stance on the conflict. Okay, so here's what ultimately matters more. The colleges should be focusing on not only the donors, but also the truth. Focus on the truth, and the truth will let you free. If you've said no, justice for Israel, we will not be communicating any more on this. We will not be allowing any more quote-unquote peaceful, mostly peaceful protests at all on this campus. If you want to feel a certain way, we're not going to be allowing you to protest. We're just not going to do that, because protest allows you to go and make the excuse for burning and looting and stuff like that. No. If you want to feel a certain way, you can feel a certain way, but that does not mean that you have the right to start burning and looting down businesses. It does not. Catching fire on college campuses. No, it does not make any sense. The DHS and the DOJ, a White House official said, has disseminated public safety information to and hosted multiple calls with campus law enforcement as well as state, local, tribal, and territorial officials to address and share information about available resources. The Justice Department's Community Relations Service is providing support to Jewish and Muslim, Arab, and other impacted communities to the official added. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, part of the DHS, is working to proactively engage with students to assess and address need, the official said. The Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights is also expanding its update of the intake process for discrimination complaints under Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act to specifically state that certain forms of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia are prohibited by this law. That means, for the first time, the complaint form will make clear that discrimination on the basis of national religion is federally funded programs and activities, including ethnic or racial slurs or stereotypes against students who are, for example, Jewish, Muslim, Sky, or Hindu, or forms of prohibited discrimination under this law. Okay, what they should be doing is saying, listen, here's the facts on the matter. Here's what happened. If you still have that opinion, fine, but we're not going to be talking about it any farther. That's what they should be saying. Okay, so the problem I do have with this article is that there's so many other things to be worried about in college campus that I don't think anti-Semitism is like number one on the list. I think that the radicalization of the students is number one. That's what they should be looking for. The radicalization of students on college campuses to be thinking a certain way. That's number one. Number two, I think what they should be focusing on is the indoctrination of students to think that they are non-binary, LGBTQ, or blah, 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 blah. That's number two. They should be focusing on those two things. And number three should be thinking about if the schools are actually teaching the students something new. If the schools are actually teaching what they should be teaching the kids, and if the school system is even failing them at the lower levels like high school, middle school, elementary school, and if they're even ready for college. That's the number three. And then number four, we can then say anti-Semitism or anti-Christ believing. Like we can focus on those four things, number 3 or 4 things. Those are the top 4 things. Not anti-Semitism being number 1. There's so many other things that we could worry about that is actually destroying our country rather than anti-Semitism. And yes, college campuses have always been radicalized to a certain into a certain direction. The thing is, then just focusing on one little aspect of that is not going to fix the problem. If you're bleeding internally and you're like, well, if I'm bleeding internally, might as well just put a Band-Aid. Like, okay, a Band-Aid could help bleeding, but that's not the specific kind of bleeding that you need. You need to actually reform the underlying systems that got us here in the very first place. You can't just say, oh, well, every time I do this, my arm hurts. Or every time I do this, my fingers hurt because I have to grab onto something for so long. Let's just say if I'm holding on a jungle gym and I'm just holding on there and it hurts if I do it for so long. How about if you don't do that certain way, or you put some gloves on and you fix the problem at hand instead of just saying, well, since my hands hurt, I'm just gonna put some lotion on. Like, no. What you're going to do is you're going to make sure that what happened before that is not going to happen again. Not put some remedy on the solution. Like, no, that's a side effect of the very problem that you guys caused in the school system. Ridiculous. Okay, with that being said, we do have a couple more articles here. We do have a Daily Wire article. We have Friends star Matthew Perry dead at 54. So, Matthew Perry is known for his role as Challenger Bing in the hit 90s sitcom Friends, has died, according to TMZ. He was 54 years old. TMZ reported that Perry was found in his California home on Saturday by first responders who were called over a possible cardiac arrest. Officials believe that he drowned in his jacuzzi, and the report said no substances were found at the scene, and no foul play was suspected. The Los Angeles Times confirmed that report with his own law enforcement sources, saying that the first responders discovered him unresponsive when they arrived at his home around 4 p.m. The Times said that the authorities did not provide an official cause of death. Perry appeared to have in all 234 episodes of Friends over its 10 seasons. Yeah, so this is just crazy. I mean, obviously, when you have the money to do something, to go and enjoy yourself, you enjoy yourself a little bit too much, so you start drinking, you start doing these drugs that you shouldn't be doing, you go down a path of addiction and depression, and it's just not good for you. I mean, obviously it's not good for you, and I think that he found out the hard way that it's not good for you, and I think that we should take his example. No, you should not drink, you should not do drugs, just stay calm. And everybody has something in life that they're going through, but it does not mean that you need to go and turn to these drugs that take your mind off of it. Go to a nice show, go to an escape room, go and watch a comedy like something on YouTube that's funny. Take your mind off of the situation that's making you feel so much anxiety. And instead of focusing on that anxiety, take your mind off of it for a second. So I like to do sometimes, I like to go on YouTube and I'm like, okay, what can I watch? Sometimes I like to watch some different things. So yesterday I was watching some Impractical Jokers. So that takes my mind off of things that are going on. And it's just it doesn't teach you anything. You don't have to be taught something all throughout your day. You can relax. You can have something just stupid on TV like Bad Girls Club just in the background of your house, so you could just like glance over in it and just say, this is so stupid, and then just continue on with your day. You don't have to focus on something all 24/7 to teach you something new. Yes, that's what I like to do. I like to focus on something new every single day. I like to learn something new every single day. But the thing is that at the same exact time, you're going to be stressed out. Like yesterday, I also watched The Purge because it was raining in my where I live. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take today to just relax. I'm going to take my mind off of the news. I'm going to watch The Purge. I'm going to watch some Impractical Jokers. And I'm going to get some other things done that I needed to get done. So it's not going to be a whole entire day of just sitting around doing nothing. I'm going to also do a bunch of things, but I'm not going to really focus on the news today. If you know what I'm talking about, it's great to just take your mind off of the reality of what's going on in your daily life for just a couple of hours. With that being said, we do have another Daily Wire article. We have Nikki Haley pledges to pull tax exemption status from schools not combating anti-Semitism. Now, like I said, There's a bunch of things that we should be focusing on the schools, and for Nikki Haley to be focusing on this and say, this is the final straw. There's been so many final straws in the college sector that this is not the boiling point for most people. The boiling point for me was seeing that when we see Caitlin Bennett go to college schools and ask people questions. A whole entire group of students go around her, surround her, and then they have to call the police and they escort her off the college campus just because she's just asking questions. Those are the people that we need to be asking questions to. We need to be finding out what exactly they believe, and the students and the professors both coordinated to take the day off that school day and just go and protest Caitlin Bennett. So there's a lot of things going on in the college campuses, and this is not the only thing here. I mean, I said the title of it before, so let's dig in. Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley aims to revoke the tax-exempt status for schools that do not fight anti-Semitism, including when it comes to Jewish state of Israel. If she is elected to the White House, which I really don't see as possible, the 2024 contender shared her plan as anti-Israel demonstrators popped up on the United States college campuses in response to Israel forces battling Hamas in the Gaza Strip following Hamas's deadly terrorist attack on Israel earlier this month. You can't fight anti-Semitism if you can't define it. President Joe Biden and the left refuse to call anti-Zionism anti-Semitism, Haley said in a recent post to X. As president, I will change the official federal definition of anti-Semitism to include denying Israel's right to exist, and I will pull tax-exempt status if they do not combat anti-Semitism in all forms, in accordance with federal law. Haley told the New York Post, she would employ the definition of anti-Semitism given the International Holocaust and Remembrance Alliance. Denying that Jewish people have the right to their self-determination is one of the complementary examples of anti-Semitism provided by the group. College campuses are allowed to have freedom of speech, but they do not have freedom. They are not free to spread hate that supports terrorism. Federal law requires schools to combat anti-Semitism. We will give this law teeth and we will enforce it. The United States of America will not use taxpayer dollars to fund anti-Semitism, period, Haley said on X. The October 7th massacre and the ensuing weeks have proven what many of us have long known. There's no difference between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, Haley added. In order to combat anti-Semitism, we have to define it, and that starts at the top. Haley is a former governor of South Carolina and the United Nations ambassador. During the time as a diplomat, Haley scolded the United Nations for opposing the Trump administration's decision to formally recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and move the United States embassy there. She even suggested the United States might consider how much it contributed to the United Nations. Roughly 2.5 months until the Iowa caucuses, Haley has risen in the national polls to roughly 8% on average. Another candidate who has been called for cracking down on anti-Semitism on campuses by restricting federal funds is Senator Tim Scott, Republican from South Carolina, who hovers around 2% in the polls. Yeah, none of these people are going to win. That's 10% with both of them. 2 plus 8. So I think that Trump is going to be the front runner in this. DeSantis is going to be number 2. Haley's going to be number 3, and everybody else in the Republican Party should drop out. Yes, that includes Tim Scott. Yes, that includes Doug Burgum. That includes Vivek. All these people should drop out. Yes, it is. I mean, yes, it's sad for Vivek to be dropping out. I do like Vivek, but the thing is, you're not winning. You're not winning. With that being said, we're going to sum up this episode here. If you did like this episode, please like and subscribe down below because I do post new episodes of this show every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thank you all for watching, and I hope they have a great rest of your day. Bye.